everyone, it's Brennan. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another video. Today I have some springtime book recommendations. I don't really know why I picked some of these books. I just tried to pick some books that either had some springtime moments or just made me think of fresh starts. That's a little dramatic. Renewals. I love spring. I love seeing the new buds on the trees and just seeing the flowers come in. It's a great time. Also, it happens in March and my birthday's in March, and I just think it is a great season. I kind of feel like a lot of my books have blue covers for some reason, so maybe that's like a springtime vibe. But the first book I'm going to talk about is The Pisces by Melissa Broder. I read this last Pisces season, so I thought it was great to recommend. I know spring technically starts more when like Aries season starts, but I thought this book was so different from anything I've ever read. I think it's, I don't want to say advertised, but categorized as a romance, but I would just categorize this as weird literature. We're following a woman. She's in her, I'm gonna say late 30s, and she's working on her PhD, but the project for it is like not fruitful. It's some kind of like literary PhD, and she's just not making a lot of progress on it. And then she has a breakup, and then she kind of has a huge prolonged existential crisis, and there's kind of a merman in here, and it's like, is there one or is there not one? How reliable is this narrator? She makes a lot of weird decisions, and she also joins a group of women who are struggling with different things. It's like a therapy group, and it's very interesting. This book is just very interesting. And she's definitely going through a renewal. It's just weird. And there are some like uncomfy, like a lot of cringy scenes in here, but I really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for something different and you're kind of looking to push the limits on the literature that you read, I would pick this up. You can see I also tabbed a couple things. I never tab my books. And then I'm going to recommend Circe by Madeline Miller. I can't believe I don't own a copy of this book. That being said, I would really recommend the audio version of this. That's how I consumed this book. And I would recommend the audio because I do think this book can be, I'm going to say boring, but with the most love. This book is super popular, and obviously it is a Greek retelling of Circe. She is kind of like a cast-off daughter of Helios, one of the sun gods, and she finds that she has some witchy powers. So she's living on this island, and she just has a lot of control over the plant life and the wildlife. So that's where my springtime energy comes from with this book. But it is just such a heartfelt journey of Circe through the years and just finding out what's important for her and her having different relationships. I thought this book was just so beautiful, and I have learned, so there are some books that just kind of try to jerk tears the entire time you're reading it, but this book, it's like it makes you invest and feel so much that by the last few pages of the book, you are just expelling that energy with tears. I'm dramatic for this video apparently today, but I loved this book so much. It's been one of my favorite books that I have read. And then for a thriller, I'm going to recommend The Husband's Secret by Liane Moriarty. This is just fun suburban drama. We're following a few different women's perspectives. One of them finds a letter that her husband had written to her, and it says, "Don't open until I'm dead." But her husband is not dead. So the contents of that letter come out and just kind of spiral for that family. And then we have a couple other perspectives. We have the perspective of a woman whose wife and best friend were cheating on her, and then she comes back to this town to spend some time with her mom. And then we also have the viewpoint of an older woman who has lost a lot of people in her life, and we just see how their stories go together. And this was just such a fun time. Another audiobook that I listened to. Liane Moriarty's audiobooks are really good. I love the Australian accents in them, but I thought this was so fun. Like, if you were just looking for drama, like domestic suburban drama, pick this book up. And then I'm going to recommend another all-time fave. I'm going to recommend Finlay Donovan is Killing It by El Cosimano. This is another thriller, but this one is a little bit more lighthearted. We're following Finlay. She's an author. She writes romantic suspense stories, and she's having a meeting with her publicist, her agent at a Panera Bread, and a woman there overhears them talking about Finlay's latest book, and that woman assumes that Finlay is actually a hit woman. So she offers Finlay the job to murder her wealthy, powerful husband. And our story goes from there. We have a little bit of a love triangle, so this in itself is a little bit of romantic suspense, but really it is just a super fun, super action-packed thriller. And one of my favorite parts of this is Finlay's relationship with her babysitter. So Finlay is newly divorced, she has 2 young children, and her babysitter is her biggest supporter. And I just love that female relationship in here. And this book is just so fun. And the second book just recently came out, and it was also really good, but I did like the first book quite a bit more. And then for a sweet romance, I'm going to recommend The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I think this is just so fresh and so fun. This is a fake dating romance, and I typically don't love fake dating, but I just absolutely adored our characters in this book. This is set on a college campus, which kind of gives me springtime vibes too. We're in California, we're in Stanford, and we're following Olive and Adam. Olive is a PhD candidate, and Adam is one of the PhD professors, like mentors in their department. They're in the STEM field, so Olive is doing a lot of research on the progression of pancreatic cancer, and it's like a very personal project for her. And Olive is trying to get one of her friends to think that she is over her most recent boyfriend because she wants her friend to date that guy. So she grabs the closest person to her and kisses him, and it is Dr. Carlson. That sounds kind of clunky. It's not. But Adam and Olive kind of find that they can both benefit from this fake dating situation. And I say this all the time when I talk about this book, but Adam is so supportive of Olive and really helps her do her best and gives her a lot of empowerment with her projects and with her academic career. But when the time comes to stand up for his woman, he stands up for her. I always say this has touch her and I'll kill you vibes. It really does. Towards the end, I think this book is just so good, and all the just like cute, tense little situations that Olive and Adam get into. And I love this for a book to pick up this spring. And then for a little historical, I'm going to recommend The Madness of Lauren N. Mackenzie. I don't really have a reason that I'm recommending this in spring. It's also just like a fun, I don't really want to call it lighthearted. There are not a lot of super lighthearted historicals that are any good in my opinion. But in this story, our heroine is a widow, and she has a pretty substantial fortune that was actually left to her from a lady who she was the companion to. So she is a hot commodity. Some men are wanting to marry her. And then we have Lord N, and he has a super dark past actually. So he is somewhere on the autism spectrum. So he does not have the social interactions that people in this like 1800s time are used to. And his dad actually put him in basically during the time an insane asylum to like live out his life. But then his dad has passed away, and his older brother is now the lord of their clan. What's that called? Laird of their clan. And he gets in out of this horrible situation that he had been in for years. And Ian really likes to collect, I think it's like kind of like Ming Dynasty type pottery, but this takes him on a lot of different excursions. Anyway, his paths cross with our heroine, and they basically have a marriage of convenience. They definitely have some like attraction, but Ian doesn't think that he is capable of loving someone and being attracted to someone and like marrying someone. But he decides that to protect our heroine from all these men who want to marry her for her fortune, that he'll marry her because he has good intentions. So this book is just so fun, a marriage of convenience with really detailed and interesting characters, and this starts like a whole series that Jennifer Ashley does. It's the Mackenzies and McBride series. I haven't read any of the other ones. You know, these Highland clans are just very large families, and we just have a lot of content for some books, but I would recommend it if you're looking to get into some historicals this spring. I'm going to talk about another historical. I'm going to talk about Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. I read this in a vlog around this time last year, and I will link it below. This is a pirate historical, but this is so unique. So our heroine is a pirate captain. She kind of inherited like this ship and this pirate crew from her dad. And what makes this interesting is that our heroine is married, but she was only with her husband for a couple weeks and then found out he kind of had a secret, and she ran off. She left him, and that was like 2 years ago, but her husband has been looking for her since then. So it's kind of like a will they won't they with this married couple, but then our heroine also gets kidnapped. And this book is like actually really super dark and like has some really graphic scenes of her being captured, so know that. But our heroine might have another love interest in a British Navy ship captain who captures her. This book just has so much going on. Fair warning, it's like pretty long, like in the 450 page range, but this was the most unique historical I have ever read. Like, definitely has modern touches, but also just like, it's a pirate romance and it is super dark, but I had such a good time reading this. Like, it is action packed. Like, they do not chill for 1 second in this book, and it is so good. And then I'm gonna talk about Normal People by Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney's books are such interesting and in-depth character studies. I think these are kind of marketed as romances, but I would not recommend this to someone as a romance. Normal People is a story of two people who are really sad, but are better when they are sad together. We are following Marianne and Connell. That's how you know it's a good book, when I remember the character names. And we start when they are in high school. Marianne's kind of like an outcast, but she's a wealthy outcast. And then Connell is like the good old boy. He comes from a single parent household. His family doesn't have a lot of money. I think he may be at their school on a scholarship, and he has kind of a lot of tension when it comes to wealth. Like, he is very aware that he doesn't come from a wealthy background like a lot of people in his school do. And his mom actually is a housekeeper for Marianne's family. So they have interactions as teenagers, and they just kind of strike up a really interesting relationship, and it doesn't really get labeled. And then this book spans for the next 10 years of their life. It is like a back and forth, just what these two super smart, super introspective people, and like very, I'll say empathetic and very introverted people do with their lives over 10 years. And sometimes they are together and sometimes they're not, and sometimes they're in this in between. This book is just so special. It's really short too and really easy to read. At least it was for me. I know people get put off because this doesn't have quotations around the dialogue, but I want you to read this book as a work of art. And then we will wrap up this video. I'm going to recommend a young adult romance. That's probably my least read genre ever, almost. I'm going to recommend Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. I always shout out Kirsten from Kirsten's Corner when I talk about this book because she got me to read it. And it is just so much fun. I love the food aspect in here. So our heroine comes from a family who started this basically like commercial sandwich chain. And then our hero in here, he comes from a mom and pop deli. And these two restaurants release a grilled cheese that is very similar. And they get into this grilled cheese Twitter war, and they basically make their teenage kids run it. So basically our hero and heroine are having this back and forth online, but also getting to be closer as friends, and it is just so much fun. The heroine in here also has just like a food blog where she tries different recipes and posts about them, and they're just trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. Like, where do they want to go to college? What do they actually want to do? And this book was just so much fun. Like, I couldn't put this down, and I think it would be a really cute, lighthearted read to pick up this spring. But those are my 10 book recommendations for you to pick up this spring. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought about them. Let me know if you're interested in picking any of these up. I really enjoyed every book that I have on this list. And comment down below your favorite flower emoji, because spring is coming. It's still cold here, but spring is coming. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one.